People want freedom, but they avoid discipline. They want options, but they avoid effort. They want a better life, but they avoid the very work that creates that life. Tony Robbins says, you can't have $1 million dream with a minimum wage work ethic. If you want the power to walk away, if you want the power to say no, if you want the power to pick your own path, you have to earn that power. Freedom is never free. It's built, it's crafted, it's paid for in sweat. And when you work hard, you stop begging and start choosing. When you don't work hard, you beg for opportunities. When you work hard, opportunities beg for you. When you don't work hard, you tolerate disrespect. When you work hard, you walk away from anything that doesn't match your worth. Tony always teaches the power of standards. Your standards decide your choices. Your choices decide your destiny. Raise your standards and life rises with you. Hard work gives you leverage, and leverage changes everything. There's a word, Tony loves leverage. Leverage means you don't have to chase it, you don't have to explain, you don't have to settle, you work so intensely that life starts bending in your direction. You want financial freedom? Work until your skills outrun your circumstances. You want emotional freedom? Work on yourself until nobody controls your reactions. You want relationship freedom? Work until you become someone who never fears being alone. That's leverage. That's power. That's CAYC. If you don't build your dream, you live someone else's. Tony Robbins said it best. If you don't design your life plan, chances are you'll fall into someone else's plan. And guess what they have planned for you? Not much. You wake up one day living a life you didn't choose, a job you don't love, a mindset you didn't build, all because you didn't do the work that would have given you options. Hard work is not punishment. Hard work is permission. Permission to live on your terms. Permission to say yes to what you want and no to what you don't. Pain is temporary. Power is forever. Tony Robbins always says pain is a gift because pain forces growth. Pain forces discipline. Pain forces evolution. When you work hard, the pain fades, the power stays. Most people look at someone successful and say, they're lucky. Lucky that they found the right opportunity. Lucky that someone believed in them. Lucky that everything lined up at the perfect time. But Tony Robbins always says something powerful. Success leaves clues, and luck is never one of those clues. What people call luck is almost always the result of relentless work, discipline, and years of effort that nobody saw. Hard work is the real currency of freedom. It is the difference between living a life you choose and a life you tolerate. When you commit to working harder than anyone expects, you earn the right to live on your own terms. Freedom doesn't show up in your life because you wished for it. Freedom comes when you build enough skill, discipline, and strength that life can no longer push you around. When you work hard, you stop depending on chance. You stop waiting for someone to save you, someone to choose you, someone to hand you a better life. You become the one who creates it. Tony Robbins teaches that the moment you take responsibility for everything in your life, it's the moment you gain the power to change anything in your life. Hard work is the daily expression of that responsibility. There are people who spend years hoping things will get better. They hope for a better job, a better partner, a better opportunity, a better life. But hope alone is not a strategy. Hard work is. When you outwork your old limitations, you outgrow your old life. You stop being trapped by circumstances because you built the strength to rise above them. The harder you work on yourself, your skills, your mindset, your discipline, the more doors life begins to open. Not because you're lucky, but because you earned the key. What people call luck is really preparation colliding with opportunity. And most people miss opportunities, not because they aren't there, but because they're not prepared to receive them. When you work hard, you become prepared. You become the person opportunities look for. You become someone who stands out. You become someone who is impossible to ignore. Tony Robbins always emphasizes that identity shapes destiny. When you see yourself as someone who works hard, someone who refuses to settle, someone who keeps pushing no matter what, your destiny shifts. You rise. Hard work also gives you something that luck never can: confidence. Because confidence isn't built from comfort, it's built from overcoming challenges. It's built from doing the things you didn't think you could do, showing up when you wanted to quit, pushing through the moments that tried to break you. That kind of confidence can't be bought, it has to be built. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, every time you push when others stop, every time you invest in growth while others chase entertainment, you are building the kind of inner power that luck could never give. True freedom comes from knowing you can handle whatever life throws at you. Freedom comes from knowing you earned your place, you earned your strength, and you earned your choices. When you work hard, you stop living in fear. You stop worrying about losing everything. Because you know that even if you fell to zero tomorrow, the version of you who worked this hard could rebuild it all. That self-trust is one of the greatest forms of freedom a human being can experience. Hard work creates options. Options create choices. Choices create freedom. And freedom creates a life where you wake up every day excited instead of stressed, grateful instead of resentful, empowered instead of trapped. Hard work is not punishment. It is the bridge between who you are and who you want to become. When you commit to it fully, consistently, and passionately, life stops happening to you and starts happening for you. And that shift, as Tony Robbins would say, changes everything. There's a truth most people don't want to face. If you don't work for the life you want, you will be forced to live the life you don't. Tony Robbins always says, if you don't design your own life plan, chances are you'll fall into someone else's plan. And when you fall into someone else's plan, you become someone who reacts instead of someone who creates. Without work, life doesn't wait for you. It decides for you. It chooses your direction, your limitations, and your future. That is the cost of doing nothing. Silently handing over your power to circumstances, people, and situations that don't care about your dreams. When you refuse to put in the work, you don't stay where you are, you fall behind. The world keeps moving. Opportunities keep shifting. Time keeps running. And life begins to pick your outcomes for you. You end up working jobs you never wanted, staying in situations you don't respect, living at a level far below your potential. Not because you're incapable, because you didn't fight for the version of you that could have risen above all that. Work is not just about earning money, it's about earning control. With a lose that control. With effort, you reclaim it. People who don't work hard often believe they are avoiding pain. They think that by staying in their comfort zone, they are staying safe. But Tony Robbins teaches that comfort zones destroy dreams. When you avoid the temporary discomfort of effort, you invite the permanent discomfort of regret. When you avoid the pain of discipline, you accept the pain of living a life that doesn't fulfill you. Life will always choose something for you, but that choice will never match the greatness you were capable of building yourself. Think about this. When you don't work on your skills, someone else with stronger skills will get the position you wanted. When you don't work on your mindset, someone else's words or opinions will control how you feel. When you don't work on your opportunities, you end up settling for whatever scraps life throws at you. Without work, you become reactive. You start adjusting to circumstances instead of shaping circumstances. You start accepting things you don't want because you haven't earned the power to reject them. And that's the key. Work gives you power. Without work, you don't have the power to choose your job, your income, your relationships, your lifestyle, or your future. You live on default. You live on autopilot. You live according to whatever path requires the least resistance. Tony Robbins often says, your decisions, not your conditions, determine your destiny. But without work, you surrender your decisions to your conditions. You let the environment dictate who you become instead of letting your vision lead you. Life is not gentle with people who refuse to grow. If you don't push, life pushes you. If you don't rise, life weighs you down. If you don't work, life does the choosing, and life will always choose the path of least resistance, the path that keeps you small, the path that keeps you surviving instead of thriving. That's why hard work matters. Not because it looks good, but because it puts you back in the driver's seat of your life. The moment you start working, truly working, everything begins to shift. You stop saying, I hope things get better, and start saying, I'm making things better. You stop asking for permission and start creating opportunity. You stop living by chance and start living by choice. Tony Robbins teaches that when you raise your standards, your entire life changes. Work is the act of raising those standards. Work is the declaration that you refuse to let life choose for you anymore. When you invest in effort, you reclaim your direction. You reclaim your power. You reclaim your future. Life will always make choices. But when you work hard, those choices become yours. And that is the difference between living a life you accept and living a life you design. Tony Robbins always says, the only thing that changes your life long term is raising your standards, because standards determine your options. If your standards are low, your options remain limited. If your standards are high, your options expand. Your standards are like the invisible ceiling above your life. You will never rise higher than what you quietly tolerate from yourself. And the moment you raise your standards, your entire world gets forced to rise with you. People think success is about luck, timing, or being in the right place. But the foundation of every breakthrough is a decision to expect more from yourself than you ever have before. Most people don't lack potential, they lack standards. They settle for good enough, and good enough locks them into a life with no options. When your standards are low, you accept jobs you don't like. You stay in relationships that drain you. You keep habits that limit you. You tolerate excuses, procrastination, and emotional weakness. And because you accept all that, life gives you nothing more than that. But when you raise your standards, you raise the quality of your choices. You stop accepting what doesn't align with your vision. You stop settling for what doesn't match your value. You stop shrinking yourself to fit into places where you no longer belong. Raising your standards doesn't mean demanding perfection. It means refusing to go backwards. It means deciding that the old version of you is no longer allowed to lead your life. When you raise your standards, your actions begin to reflect a future you haven't reached yet. You start working like someone who deserves better. You start thinking like someone who's going somewhere. You start moving like someone who's done settling. That shift in identity is powerful. Tony Robbins calls it a breakthrough moment. The instant you draw a line in the sand and say, this is no longer who I am, and here's the truth, the world responds to your standards When you raise them, people treat you differently. Opportunities appear that were invisible before. Life begins to bring you options that match the person you are becoming. It's not magic, it's alignment. When you elevate your standards, you elevate your environment. You elevate your habits. You elevate your energy, and because your behavior changes, your results change. Options show up not because life is suddenly kinder to you, but because you become someone who can see, attract, and command better options. Standards are not about what you want, they're about what you refuse to live without. A person who raises their standards refuses to stay broke, refuses to stay unskilled, refuses to stay emotionally weak, refuses to stay stuck. They refuse to stay in situations where they are disrespected, undervalued, or underpaid. They refuse to let fear dictate their moves. They refuse to let comfort steal their potential. And when you refuse low-level living, you create space for higher-level opportunities. Raising your standards also forces you to raise your level of work. You can't demand a powerful life while maintaining a weak work ethic. If you want more, you must become more. You can't have championship results with average effort. Tony Robbins teaches that identity is the strongest force in human behavior. When you see yourself as someone with high standards, your behavior naturally rises to meet that identity. You start waking up earlier, working harder, becoming sharper, stronger, and more disciplined. You stop entertaining negativity. You stop wasting time. You stop allowing yourself to operate on autopilot. And slowly, options begin to multiply. You get to choose better opportunities because you earned them. You get to walk away from what doesn't serve you because you no longer depend on it. You get to stand tall because you built yourself to stand tall. Raising your standards doesn't just raise your options. It raises your entire destiny. Because once you expect more from yourself, life has no choice to deliver more to you. Tony Robbins always says that power comes from mastery. Not from dabbling, not from half trying, not from doing something once in a while, but from becoming so skilled, so sharp, so undeniable that life itself begins to bend in your direction. That bending is called leverage. Leverage is what gives you strength in situations where others feel weak. Leverage is what gives you options when others feel stuck. Leverage is what makes people seek you out instead of you chasing them. And leverage only comes from mastery. Most people never experience true leverage because they stop growing as soon as things get uncomfortable. They avoid mastery because mastery requires repetition, discipline, and a level of commitment that most people aren't willing to maintain. Tony Robbins teaches that repetition is the mother of skill, and skill is the mother of freedom. When you repeat something over and over, when you study it, improve it, break it down, rebuild it, refine it, you reach a point where the world can't ignore you. You become valuable, you become rare, and rarity creates leverage. Leverage means you're no longer trapped by circumstances. You don't beg for opportunities. Opportunities come looking for you. You don't fear being replaced. You become irreplaceable. You don't accept whatever life hands you. You choose what works best for you. This is the advantage that mastery gives you. Without mastery, you are just another person trying to survive. With mastery, you become a person others depend on, respect, and trust. Mastery is not only about skill, it's also about psychology. Tony Robbins emphasizes that mastery of your mind is just as powerful as mastery of your craft. When you master your emotions, you stop being controlled by fear. When you master your focus, you stop being distracted by noise. When you master your standards, you stop lowering yourself just to fit in. Mental mastery creates emotional leverage, meaning you don't get pushed around by situations. You choose how to respond, how to rise, and how to lead. In life, leverage is everything. A person with mastery can achieve in 1 hour what someone without mastery might struggle to achieve in years. A person with mastery can make decisions with clarity, negotiate with confidence, and handle pressure like it's nothing. This is why masters rise faster and higher. They have done the work that others avoided. They've built a level of competence that gives them the advantage at every turn. Think of it like this. Imagine two people. One works hard but never truly improves. The other works hard and relentlessly builds mastery. They study deeper, practice longer, and focus harder. Which one do you think will create more options? Which one will earn more respect? Which one will have the power to say no to things that don't serve them? The answer is obvious. Mastery separates the average from the exceptional, and the exceptional always have leverage. Mastery also builds confidence. When you know what you're doing, truly know, you stop doubting yourself. You stop hesitating. You stop shrinking. You walk differently, talk differently, carry yourself differently. Confidence is a form of leverage because confident people influence outcomes. They lead rooms, they shift energy, they move people. And that influence creates more opportunities. But here's the truth: mastery requires sacrifice. You must be willing to do what others won't. You must be willing to practice when others sleep. You must be willing to study when others scroll. You must be willing to grow when others are comfortable staying the same. Tony Robbins always says, people are rewarded in public for what they practice for years in private. Mastery is earned in the private, lonely moments when no one is watching. Leverage is acquired in the silence long before the world applauds you. And once you have leverage, real leverage, you become unstoppable. You no longer take whatever life gives. You choose. You decide. You direct, because mastery built you into someone who no longer lives by chance. You live by power, purpose, and intention. That is the gift of mastery. And that is the leverage that changes your destiny. Tony Robbins always says, the strongest people you know are the ones who have transformed their pain into power. Because pain is not the enemy. Pain is the messenger. Pain is the teacher. Pain is the sculptor that shapes you into someone stronger than your past, bolder than your fears, and more capable than you ever imagined. Most people try to avoid pain. Numb pain, escape pain. But the truth is this: the pain you run from today becomes the weakness that haunts you tomorrow. And the pain you face today becomes the power that carries you into your future. Every struggle you're facing right now is not here to break you. It's here to build you. The moments that feel heavy, the moments that test your patience, the moments that stretch your limits, these are the moments that forge your character. You don't grow when everything is easy. You grow when life demands more from you than you thought you had to give. That demand forces you to pull strength out of places inside you that you didn't even know existed. That's where power is born. Pain puts pressure on you, but pressure is what makes diamonds. Without pressure, coal stays coal. Without resistance, muscles never grow. Without storms, roots never dig deep. Tony Robbins teaches that life is happening for you, not to you. The pain you feel today is not punishment, it is preparation. Preparation for a version of you who can handle more opportunities, more responsibility, more success, and more abundance without collapsing. Without pain, you wouldn't have the emotional endurance or mental resilience required to sustain the blessings you say you want. Think back to a moment in your life when you went through something difficult, something that felt unbearable at the time. Now look at who you became because of it. You are wiser today because of that experience. You are stronger today because of that experience. You understand more about yourself, people, and life because of that experience. Pain taught you what comfort never could. Comfort keeps you the same. Pain upgrades your identity. People often pray for strength without realizing that strength cannot be given. It must be developed. If you want a stronger mindset, life will send you challenges that test it. If you want a stronger heart, life will send you situations that stretch it. If you want stronger belief, life will send you moments where you have no one to rely on but yourself. Pain is the gym where your power is trained. Every rep of difficulty builds emotional muscle. Every setback builds mental toughness. Every heartbreak deepens your capacity to love, to empathize, and to rise again. And here's the truth. The pain you experience today is temporary, but the power it builds will last for the rest of your life. The discipline you gain from fighting through struggle doesn't disappear when the moment passes. The endurance you develop doesn't vanish when life gets easier. The breakthroughs born from pain stay with you as permanent upgrades. Pain creates a version of you that comfort could never produce. When Tony Robbins says, life doesn't get better until you get better, this is what he means. When you face pain instead of avoiding it, you become the kind of person who can't be easily broken. You become someone who doesn't panic in storms because you've already survived worse. You become someone who doesn't fear starting over because your strength is greater than any setback. You become someone who doesn't crumble under stress because your resilience is built on real experience, not theory. Pain builds perspective. Pain builds gratitude. Pain builds compassion. Pain builds hunger. Pain builds courage. And courage is the gateway to power. The version of you that emerges after pain is not weaker. It is wiser, deeper, more grounded, more fearless. That is why your pain today is not a burden. It is an investment in your future strength, your future peace, your future success. Your pain today is building your power tomorrow. Trust the process. Keep moving. Keep fighting. Keep rising. One day, you will look back and realize the pain you survived became the power that made you unstoppable. Tony Robbins always teaches that life doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you're willing to work for. And that's the truth. Most people don't want to face it. Choices are not free. Choices are earned. The ability to decide your path, choose your environment, walk away from what doesn't serve you, and move toward what empowers you, those are privileges built through discipline, sacrifice, and relentless effort. People want freedom, but very few want to pay the price of earning that freedom. Yet life makes the terms simple. If you don't earn your choices, life will make them for you. Think about the moments in your life when you felt stuck. Stuck in a job, stuck in a relationship, stuck in a mindset that didn't reflect your potential. The reason you felt stuck wasn't because you lacked dreams, it was because you lacked leverage. Without leverage, you don't get to choose, you have to accept. Without work, you don't get to walk away, you have to stay. Without building yourself, you don't get the privilege of options, you get the reality of limitations. Choices belong to those who build themselves strong enough to handle the consequences of those choices. When Tony Robbins says, your decisions shape your destiny, he means that the ability to make decisions is itself a form of power. But power is not handed out randomly. It is earned through responsibility, consistency, and the courage to do what others avoid. When you work hard, you earn the kind of choices that change your life. You earn the choice to say no to things that drain you. You earn the choice to say yes to opportunities that match your worth. You earn the choice to distance yourself from negativity, from toxic environments, from any situation that limits your growth. Without that effort, you're left taking whatever life gives you, whether you like it or not. People often envy those who seem to have endless options. The ones who can switch careers, move cities, reinvent themselves, start over, evolve. But what they're really envying is the work that person put in long before anyone noticed. They're envying the discipline they never saw, the sacrifices they never witnessed, the nights of grinding, learning, improving, and investing in themselves. The freedom you see is the result of countless invisible choices that person made when no one was watching. That is earned choice. That is self-made power. Choices belong to people who outgrow excuses, people who raise their standards, people who refuse to stay the same. Because when you evolve, your options evolve with you. The world opens up when your discipline opens up, when you commit to growth, real growth. You no longer depend on luck, permission, or circumstance. You control the direction of your life because you've built the capacity to handle that control. The truth is, life will test you before it trusts you with choices. It will ask you to prove that you're ready. It will push you, pressure you, challenge you, and force you to grow. And every time you push back, every time you improve, every time you rise, every time you keep going, you're earning the right to choose a better future. The people with the most choices are the ones who kept going when others quit. They did the work. They built the skill. They strengthened the mindset. They invested in the future version of themselves. And because of that, they have options others can only dream of. The moment you start putting in the work is the moment your choices begin expanding. You may not see it instantly, but every step builds leverage. Every day of discipline builds confidence. Every improvement builds power. And with power comes freedom. Freedom to design your life. Freedom to walk away from anything that doesn't align. Freedom to build a destiny instead of inheriting circumstances. Choices are not miracles. They are the reward for the work you do, the standards you raise, and the person you become. Earn your choices and you take back your life. Earn your choices and you rewrite your story. Earn your choices and you become unstoppable.